All right, Mike, welcome back. We are going to talk about what it takes to publish a book, or at least what one person's thoughts are on what it takes to publish a book. But before we do that, we need to start with follow-up. You sent me a link earlier. I was excited about this link. I've actually checked it 4 or 5 times between the last recording and now because I'm like, when is this coming out? When is this coming out? Will you tell us about the link you sent me?
Yeah, well, actually, I sent you 2 links.
Sorry.
excuse the self-promotion
Sorry.
here for just a minute, folks. But I did mention the personal retreat planner last episode, and I'm thrilled to announce that is actually live. So it is on the New Year site, and I worked with Jesse from New Year, the same person who does the focused wall calendars, and built my analog planner exactly the way that I wanted to follow my personal retreat process. There's an example personal retreat at the beginning, and then a blank personal retreat, so you could do that and set your quarterly intentions, then weekly and daily planning pages for 90 days, so you can execute on those plans, plus a bunch of blank pages at the back. There's a video which walks through the whole thing on the website, so the link will be in the show notes if you want to check that out. They're $29 a piece, and then if you subscribe and you get 4 of them at a time, so basically like a year's worth, you can save 15%. So it ends up being under $100 for a year's worth of planners. And this is just something that I wanted to exist in the world. So I started talking to Jesse about it, and he's like, yeah, let's build it.
Well, and it looks really good. I watched the video. The video's clean. Like I like the video. So overall, I think you're going to need to get it out there and let people know about it. I think they're going to buy it up.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. And my intention, I haven't really talked to Jesse about this, but he makes them by hand. So if we don't sell a bunch, it's okay. We've got the format now, and it's not dated, so you can use them whenever. And I fully intend to buy one every quarter myself. So
Yeah.
Even if nobody else buys them, it's something I wanted to exist in the world. But I've had I brought it with me to CEX, and people seem to like it. So if you want one of your own, you can go to the New Year's site, and the link will be in the show notes. Another thing that I did, this is tied to a YouTube video, which is not out as we're recording this, but it will be available by the time this goes live. I recorded this 25-minute reading masterclass video. It started off as, here's how I built my personal book notes library in Obsidian using the Basis core plugin. And then it turned into everything of my philosophy behind how I read books, the mind nodes, mind maps, how I bring everything over. So from beginning to end, the entire process is documented. It's 25, 30 minutes. And I created an Obsidian vault, which is just the 217 book notes that I have with the Obsidian base set up. So you get the card view with the rating and the author and the date and the number of pages. And then in each one of those notes, there's the metadata at the top, which is what the Obsidian Bases uses. There's my 3-sentence summary, there's my mind map, and then there's a text-based version of all of my notes.
Nice.
The only thing worth calling out here is that I have removed the linked notes from those notes, if that makes sense, because those links that you would add for you have the notes from the book, right? And then they mention the fallacy effect, and you put double brackets around the fallacy effect. Now you've got a note called the fallacy effect that you can link to. I took those out because I feel like those connections are way more valuable when you make them yourself. So all the raw materials are there, and then you could basically just go through and put double brackets around the stuff that you want to link together. And then you can go into those notes and look at the unlinked mentions and click to add them, wherever else you want them from the book notes library. I had no idea what to charge for this thing, so I made it pay what you want.
Nice.
I don't have a URL I have a checkout URL. The product exists, but I don't have a clean URL that I can share in the show notes. I will figure that out, and I will include it by the time this goes live. But yeah, it's pay what you want. So the suggested price, I think, is $20 because that's 10 cents a book note. Less than that, but you don't have to actually put anything in there. You can just put in your email address and get it for free. So yeah, I'm going to start sharing these with the world. And if you want to get my whole book notes library, now you can. I
think this will be a good asset for people as they think about the different books and whether they want to read different books, and then your perspective on it. I know, I personally reading something, getting my own notes, and then comparing it to like what somebody else got out of it. Like, this is why, just, to let everybody know, like, this is why we do the show, is because I like to read books and I get to talk to Mike about it. And then he has a different perspective and I have a different perspective. And then we kind of hash it out. And then I feel and I think differently about the book, after our conversation than sometimes I do going into it. And I think this is another but less personal way, but it's also that way that it allows you to like relate to a broader community, which I think is really, really cool. So good work on that.
Well, I've had a couple people ask me to create a product with all my book notes, and I've been dragging my feet on it, honestly, for years. And then when I was putting out this YouTube video, this was the natural call to action at the end. And then I only mention it here because this is literally a podcast about books, and most of the books that are in there we've covered on this show. Yep. So if you want all those, you can go download them. And then, because I've been saying that I've been really busy the last several episodes, I have one more thing that is actually launching before this episode goes live that I've been working hard on. Actually, I've been working on this project for years. I have been working with my friend Chris Bailey to help him bring a video course to life called Overcoming Procrastination.
Help remind us who Chris Bailey is, just in case there's anybody out there who's not sure of who Chris Bailey is.
So Chris Bailey has written several books. He gave a TED Talk, and the TED organization, their little bio for him is the most productive man you'd ever hope to meet. Okay. So his first book was a productivity project, and basically just doing all of the experiments for all the productivity advice, figuring out what works, what doesn't. And then he wrote a couple other books, Hyperfocus, which I think was probably my favorite, and then How to Calm Your Mind. He's working on another one regarding intention, but this Overcoming Procrastination, this is his first attempt at a video course. And so I walked through all the tech setup with him, helped him dial in his studio, and then he recorded all the video, and I've been doing all the editing. As we're recording this, it's kind of crunch time. We're getting everything uploaded, getting all the stuff set up in the circle space for the course. Is going to be some live Q&As with a plus version. And by the time this goes live, I'm sure he'll have the link on his website, chrisbailey.com. But there's 60 videos in this course.
Oh my gosh.
There's a couple different PDFs, a couple different frameworks that he's introduced, which I think are just absolutely amazing. And very excited to see this finally get out into the world. I'm sure Chris is too, but it's looking really nice. And since I've worked on it so much, I wanted to mention it here.
And what's rough timeline? Month, 2, 3, 6? Like, did you say a date? I don't remember if you said a date or not.
September 16th is the official launch date. So it will be out by the time this goes live. Okay. It's not available right now. So if you're joining us for the live recording, for example, which is actually one more thing we should add to the outline here, we're going to experiment with doing the live recordings publicly. We had them behind a paywall, but not very many people were able to join them. And so we think maybe that's not a real valuable part of the membership for folks, and it would actually be more valuable if more people showed up. So we're going to try to schedule these ahead of time and hopefully get a bunch of people to show up live and talk to us about these books that we're going to read.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, good deal. You've been doing a lot. Let's move into the follow-up from the last book. All right. So I'll start us off. Get your workspace organized. Mike, I'm never gonna do this. I'm never gonna be able to do this. Like, I just can't. It gets better and then it gets worse. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes I kind of do it okay, and then sometimes I don't. And then anytime anything gets busy, anytime life gets busy, that's the first thing to go. The absolute first thing to go is like papers just start popping up everywhere, and I leave pens laying around, and it just becomes chaos factory. So this one, as I like to do on my red, yellow, green scale, this one's a big red, like big red. And I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. So it's a big red on that one. The next one I had was, how can I single handle more tasks, like rearrange schedule, reprioritize? I did not have a chance to think about this one at all. This one's going to take me more work to really think about. The caveat to that would be, I have thought, I shouldn't say I didn't think about it at all. I guess the one area I did think about it was in email. It's like, how do I, if I'm going to look at this email, I'm going to take care of it now, or I'm not really going to care about it. And that mindset helped me out a little bit. Now there's those ones that sit in the messy middle, where it's like, okay, I actually need to put more brain space into this. And this is where I don't have a good system for that. It's like, I know I can flag them. I know I can star them. I know I can put them in a to read, kind of folder or to respond folder. None of that seems to work for me. So I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. But I've been better at like, oh, this is going to take me 30 seconds when I just fire off the thing. So that's in my mind a single handle kind of a situation. I looked at it, I responded, it's gone. It's off my brain. But those are I only had 2. You had quite a few more, so get after it.
Do we have to?
You can talk about any or all of them or none of them, and we can just move on. I'm good. The world just
so there's this thing that people will do in Toastmasters for table topics, where they give you the topic once you get to the front of the room. One of the pro tactics is to acknowledge the topic and then just talk about whatever the heck you want. I'm trying to fight the urge to do that.
That's awesome.
So I had one for never complete something without adding it to my list. I did this successfully until this week. And then the last minute things for the course launch were coming hot and heavy, and I could not keep up. So I need to reboot that one. What one skill, if I developed and did it in an excellent fashion, would have the greatest positive impact on my career? I think I have an answer to this, and I think it's copywriting. If I increased my ability to write copy, that helps with all of the social experimentation stuff that I'm doing, like the public messaging. It helps with all the sales page stuff. Because one of the things that I'm really good at is making things. One of the things I'm really bad at is talking about them, because I always feel salesy.
Okay.
And I know that you just got to get over that. But I feel like one of the reasons I feel that way is because I just am not very skilled at talking about the things that I've made in the right way. It kind of bugs me when I see people who will go on social media and it's like, trademark, big week, right? And then they share 12 different updates about this one little thing that they did. And I was like, you really milked that. You got a lot of mileage out of that thing that you did. But what I recognize is, they're better marketers than I am. So I've got a couple books that I have my eye on, like they're on my bookshelf in my anti-library. I haven't read them yet. So I don't know when I'll be able to take action on that, but that's my thought there.
Okay.
Work all the time that you work. This one, I think I did pretty well. The problem is that I have been working a lot. Mm-hmm. Basically, the pattern lately has been work until about 11 o'clock at night, fall into bed exhausted, sleep until about 7:30, wake up and immediately start over. With a few periodic breaks for podcasts and soccer games.
So just to revisit your personal retreat planning video, I'm going to tell you that's not on your ideal week, Mike. That's not the outline of your ideal week.
Hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
True.
And this is the season I find myself in. So, there's a lot of stuff that just kind of has come to a head in the last couple of weeks. Like I mentioned, the Chris Bailey video course, I've literally been working on that for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like I didn't know it was going to be 2 years. I couldn't have picked a, publish date for that. All the pieces had to come together, and it just happens to be right now. Not ideal timing for me, but it is what it is, and it's almost done. So I don't know. Identify the limiting factor in my business. Definitely me. I think the biggest thing is I need to create some better processes and some better documentation. I have some people who are helping me with stuff. I have someone who helps me with the YouTube videos. I have someone who helps me with the community management, and I've done a fairly decent job of delegating pieces of this, but there are still things where, if I just spent an entire day thinking about all of the questions that I have been asked, and then just like creating that documentation so that I don't need to be asked about them again, I know that would have a huge impact. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't had the time to even think about that stuff. So we'll get there. And then the last one, become an optimist, or the revised version based on Cory's feedback. What would an optimist think?
What would an optimist think?
So I have a very real example of this being a successful action item, because I think it was last Tuesday I was trying to record Focused, and David and I were having some weird issue with somebody's internet, either mine or his. We both did speed tests. It both looked fine. But anytime he would start talking, I would hear a couple words and then it would go blank for like 30 seconds. Impossible to have a conversation that way, right? So we spent all day trying to get that episode out the door. Like, we originally scheduled it for 9:30 a.m. We couldn't get it to work. And then he recorded Mac power users, and that actually worked. And then we were picked up in the afternoon. It didn't work. I had to go to soccer practice. We got that out at like 10:30 at night. He was leaving for vacation the next day. Like, an entire day devoted to finally getting this podcast out at the very last minute, when I should have been in bed. And I was like, at first I was pretty frustrated by that. But then I realized that one of the benefits of that is that I figured out how to actually record podcasts at my other desk. So there's a different interface. It's a Rodecaster Video that I use over there. And we tried everything, to try to get it to work. So I'll switch desks, and then I realized I hadn't set that one up for like the mix minus sort of a thing. So I figured out how to record on that desk without having the person's audio get piped back in, because it's a little bit tricky when it tries to combine everything into that one USB channel basically. But at least I learned something. So I was thinking about that, that exact phrase popped into my head. What would the optimist think here? Well, at least you learned how to use your Rodecaster Video a little bit better.
Yep. And you and David bonded over the shared struggle, right?
It's true. It was the feedback episode that, as we record this, is the most recent episode. That episode actually turned out really good. So yeah, not a big deal in the big scheme of things, but that day,
I'd have been,
it was a big deal.
Yeah, I'd have been super frustrated by that too. All right. So are you ready to start talking about publishing?
Let's do it.
All right, folks, we're going to talk about Chandler Bolt's book, Published: The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. This book was originally published in 2016. It was re-released in 2021. So we read the 2021 version of it. And in this book, we're going to talk about essentially like a lot of the aspects of, publishing a book, but not just publishing the book, from getting started writing it, from mind mapping to then moving to an outline. And Chandler's going to take you through this like entire big process. The book is 27 chapters long. It's divided into 7 sections. And it covers a lot of stuff. Like, at least that's what I thought as we were working through it. So as I started reading it, I thought, okay, this is like a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be. But then the other thing that I think you need to know right off the bat about this book, if you're considering, reading this book, he considers himself an authorpreneur, right? I think that's how you say that word. Like, I was trying to practice that word, which means he's written it in a way that is very different than some of the other books you'll read. Like, for instance, I can't remember if he gives the book away or if he gives the audio book away, but like, he gives versions of the book away, right? Like, he just freely just gives it away. Does he want you to buy it? Sure. If you'll buy it, that's great. But like, here's the audio book version of it, or here's the other book version of it, or the Kindle, kind of version of it. So it's kind of just like it's a very different mindset to it. And then you quickly realize that this is tied to self-publishing. Is it selfpublishing.com? I think is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So his other work, or his other, side of his business is selfpublishing.com. And these two things go hand in hand. And if you try to read this book without connecting it to selfpublishing.com, one, you can't do that because he references it all through the book. And two, I think it's kind of doing you and the book a disservice, right? Because Chandler meant these two things to go together. Like, they are part of his strategy. They're a part of his marketing for the book and the reason why he wrote the book and all these other things. So I don't say that to say anything about it. We'll talk about that in style and rating. But I'm saying as you prep for the book, it's going to give you a really, really big, broad perspective on self-publishing. and it's going to, and then a little bit about traditional publishing, I'd say. And then it's also very, very tied to selfpublishing.com. So that's my kind of overview for it. Mike, what do you have to start us off with?
It's definitely a business card for selfpublishing.com, but it is the best version of that you can possibly imagine. So it is not just a lead magnet so that he gets more potential clients. He gives a lot of value in this book. This is the blueprint for how to create this sort of thing effectively. So you probably have a picture in your head of somebody who has done this quickly and cheaply, and they haven't given you a whole lot of substance, and you feel like you got ripped off even though you just entered your email address. That's not this book.
But I can't, you said blueprint. That's a great word. The one that came to my head was, this is like the reference for self-publishing. Like if I'm going to self-publish a book, or if I know somebody that wants to, I'm going to hand them Chandler Bolt's book, and I'm going to say, you should probably at least skim through this and figure out what aspects of it's going to help you.
Yeah, I wish I had read this before I self-published my book, as we talked about in the pro show.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're okay with it, let's go ahead and get rolling right into chapter 1. But then let me tell the listeners, we're actually not going to do this chapter by chapter because there's 27 chapters. We're going to do it section by section. So the first section will be the introduction, which is just chapter 1. Then there are 7 actual sections that will lead us through to the end of the book. So we'll start with the intro, and then we'll roll right into the first section. So the intro is basically the motivator of why you should care about books and why you're thinking about books. And, it's titled, it's one chapter, but it's titled Books Change Lives. And basically he's describing this idea of, I want you to think about why you want to write the book, and kind of some of the details around that book. And I think it's a really good way to start off a book about publishing, right? Like it kind of sets the stage. It says, here's where I am, here's where you are. And then he establishes here. And I think the key thing that comes out of the introduction for me, or chapter 1 for me, is these 8 milestones to go from blank page to published author. And he has a figure, like a diagram that's like a mountain, and he walks you, it's like a map leading up the mountain. And he kind of gives you the idea of these eight phases, or these 8 stages to get from the blank page to the published author. So I thought he set the stage pretty well, and I felt good with the intro.
Yeah, the big takeaway from the introduction for me is that when you publish a book, it impacts 3 groups of people. The first one is readers. The second one is friends and family. And then the third one is one person whose life is radically changed. And as I mentioned in the pro show, we were talking about my experience previously when I had self-published. It was not a financial success. You can't find that book anymore. I took it down. But the one thing that came from that was that email that I got from somebody who told me that my book was the thing that they needed at that point in their life, and they were considering leaving their family, committing suicide. Like, they wanted to end it. And reading my book was the thing that allowed them to keep going. And that alone is worth it, right? If you can impact somebody's life in such a drastic way, that's amazing. And that is exactly what that's tied to my life theme. I want to help people multiply their time and talent, leave a bigger dent in the universe. And sometimes you look at that and you measure it in terms of quantity, but really, what he calls out here is that sometimes it's qualitatively that you impact people, and you can't really see how big of an impact that has because it's just one person, but it could really be a significant difference. And that's really, I think, one of the people that you should be considering when you are trying to write this book. If you had that in mind, I think what it does is it causes you to go deeper into some of these things than you would normally otherwise go. Like, you don't leave any stone unturned if you really think that you have the possibility of helping somebody in that great a way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. All right, we move right into the first section, and the first section is made up of 3 chapters: looking for why, self-publishing versus traditional publishing, and the published author's mindset, and then what to write about. So he starts off with this idea as if you need to think about why you want to write the book, and he outlines 4 different reasons why people would write a book. So there's it's a passion project, there's a shared experience, you want to be a full-time author, and then you want business growth. And those are the 4 big level items that he calls out. When you get to the full-time author one, he actually breaks that down into another series of things, and that would be so the full-time author, basically you just want to write books for a living. The freelance author, so earning part of your living from the royalties. The authorpreneur, which I have to read this one because this one always messes with me. I can't remember it. Using your book to start or grow a business, mostly generating revenue through customers for the business, and then also making money on royalties on the side. And then the speaking author. And what I think is cool about this is I've kind of known these categories existed, but it was cool to see them like clearly spelled out. Like, oh yeah. And now you like think back on books and you're like, oh, that person was trying to be a full-time author. Oh, that person was just a speaking author. Like this book is just a calling card to like say, come hire me to speak. His is the authorpreneur. And it's like it frames the way you read books, and it makes you smarter about the way you read books because you understand why people want to read the books. So that's chapter 2. Chapter 3, as I said, is called self-publishing versus traditional publishing. As you might imagine, it's the details around self-publishing, traditional publishing, why you would want to do one, why you would want to do another, the pros and cons, the things that you think. So he kind of like talks about myths that you think. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, where traditional publishing isn't going to market for you, even though you think they might. And then you get into that last one, which is what to write about. And he actually kind of helps you think through these different ideas of what to write about. There's a whole lot more in those first 4 chapters, but I'll stop because I've been going for a little while. So Mike, what do you have?
Yeah, I want to talk about the different publishing options here because I have a little bit of experience and connections in the traditional publishing world. I'm friends with a couple of people who have traditionally published books. The aforementioned Chris Bailey, for example, with the video course. So I kind of have a little bit of a I don't know. It's not like it's a big secret or anything, but I can kind of see some of this stuff play out. And I think you can read Chandler Bolt's book and you can view how he describes these different options and think, oh, well, he's just got an axe to grind with traditional publishers. But I actually don't think that anything that he says here is wrong.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. So traditional publishing says that they take the biggest cut of the royalties. They have the most connections. So if you need a really good copy editor, they'll hook you up. That's where the value for that comes. Hybrid publishing, you get better royalty rates and more flexibility, but there are a lot of people out there who are hybrid publishers and they are kind of scam artists. So you got to be careful who you're hooking up with. And then self-publishing that offers the biggest royalties even gives a specific range, 3 to 7 times more than traditional publishing, but that's going to require you to do the most work. I think that the information that he shares here, well, obviously, I think he's putting his finger on the scale a little bit for self-publishing, hence selfpublishing.com. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of it is, I don't think any of the descriptions or the criticisms are unfair here. And I feel like when you read that section of the book, you really walk away not like, well, okay, so he gave me some information. Obviously, I need to self-publish. It's just a question of whether I'm going to work with selfpublishing.com. It's more like, that's really something for me to think about. It feels like a very fair, just here's all the facts that you need to consider as you're trying to make this decision.
Yeah, I got it. The way I'll word it is he is very much a proponent of self-publishing. And that makes sense because that's the business he runs in addition to writing. But I didn't think that it was like for lack of a better way to put it, you're dumb if you don't self-publish. Like I didn't get that impression. It was more a matter of, hey, here's what you need to know about these different publishing things. I lean towards self-publishing because that's the business that I run and I've seen it impact people's lives. And that was more of the take on it. Like I didn't for once feel like he was being too strong or too aggressive at all. Like I thought it was appropriate the way he pitched that chapter.
Yeah, and then I also think there's some really great stuff in chapter 4 of what to write about. Mm-hmm. He's got 2 rules when writing. You can't edit while you write. Seems simple, but I fall into that all the time. Yeah. Number 2, you can't write more than 1 book at a time. Again, seems simple, but also I understand how that could completely trip you up. And then the thing that was maybe the most valuable for me was how to choose which book to write first, because we talked about this, I think, a little bit last time. Which book can I write the fastest? Which idea will result in a finished book? And which idea makes you the happiest? And when I asked myself those questions, I think the first two specifically heavily lean towards the personal retreat stuff. Okay. The only one where there is maybe a question is the third one, because I've kicked around the idea of writing a book about the life theme concept. Then there's the creativity flywheel, the PKM stack. Like I have all these different frameworks, but I don't have the clarity on those. So those are definitely not the ones to answer the first two questions. So really the genius of this, I think, is asking all three of these questions, because as I did that, it was like, oh, obviously, yeah, this is the one.
Yep. And I think one of the things that I'm still processing as I read the book is information dense in terms of he gives you a lot of different things in like not lists, but kind of lists, and like here's 4 things to think about. So I'll give you an example of it. Coming up with a book idea. This is in what to write about section in chapter 4. He gives you these 4 questions. What do you get paid for? What's your area of expertise? What are you most passionate about? Is there a topic or genre a lot about? What do people come to you for advice for? What is the broken record thing that happens all the time in your business? And it's like, there's just a lot of those. They're like plastered throughout the entire book. And I found myself going, okay, this is good, but I can't hold all this right now. Okay, this is good, but I can't hold all this right now. And that's why I think of it as a reference book, that really what I think I'm going to use this book for is if and when I do sit down to write the book that I want to publish, I go back to section 1. I reread section 1, and then I do the things that he has pushed you to do. He's, go do this thing, go this idea generation, go do this, activity or whatever it is. He is unashamed. I don't know if that's the right phrase, so correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he will push you to selfpublishing.com every chance he gets to push you to selfpublishing.com. We've got this resource. We've got that resource. We've got this resource. Go to selfpublishing.com/whatever. I mean, Mike, he probably did it, like 50 times, 100? Like, I don't even know. A lot.
But they are all specific resources that you can use to implement what he is telling you to do. Mm-hmm. It's not, oh, remember, I told you, I have this free toolkit that you can download. So just go to this one URL, and he's not giving you that over and over and over again. He's giving you something valuable every time he mentions it.
The crazy thing is I got through this, and I was thinking like, well, hold on. Why would I pay selfpublishing.com? It seems like he's given me so much like valuable information. And I know like they add value on top of that because we get to it later. But just know that going into it, like if you're going to read this book, he very much is, I think it comes from he's very much we want you to be able to write your book and write it well. And we've created all these resources. And oh, by the way, we're running a business and we're going to try to make money at the same time. So it didn't rub me as wrong as I think it could have, or as wrong as it might rub some other people. I'm good on.
Well, I am on Chandler Bolt's email list, so I can tell you the thing that they are selling currently is an author's mastermind. So it's kind of interesting. The book is basically all of the information that you would need. If you are a self-motivated person who is going to follow the plan, you don't need anything else than this book. However, the other places where people are going to get stuck is in the motivation and getting around a group of people who are actually going to help you do the thing. So I think it's pretty brilliant where they've basically given you the how in the book, but there's other options available if you still are having trouble taking the consistent action and doing the thing. That's the ideal business model, in my opinion.
Before we move to the second section, do you remember the price of the mastermind, roughly?
No, I don't. In fact, I don't even think I clicked on it. I just saw, oh, hey, Chandler Bolt. I got an email from him. We're talking about his book today.
I got all those emails too, but I didn't click through to them just because of time and life. But I'm curious at what that mastermind would cost. All right, if you're good, well, let's move on to the second section.
Yeah, so the second section, by the way, this is the More writing method, and the M in More stands for mind mapping. There were multiple things in this book that I was like, Mike is going to love this book, right? Like, I mean, at least he's going to love the concept. I don't know if he's going to love the whole book, but he's going to love the concept. Yeah. So this is interesting because mind mapping, typically people will think of this as like right brain thinking versus outlining is left brain thinking, and that's not actually true. And he actually talks about chapter 5 is the magic of mind mapping. Chapter 6 is outlining your book. So these are two different processes. And I've actually said that these are two different ways of looking at the information, and it's not what's your natural bent. You should be using both of these tools. That being said, one chapter on mind mapping, I think that doesn't give me a whole lot of new information.
Well, but you're not his audience. Like, let's be real about this.
That's
you are
true.
not his audience
That's true.
for chapter 5.
Yeah. I do think that calling out mind mapping as a specific part of the process is pretty awesome. I think there's lots of other places you can go to get more information and help in terms of creating an effective mind map. But the key is you've got, and I think he actually advocates that you do this just on a piece of paper too, which I'm not sure I recommend. Analog tools are great, and that's probably the place to start. But once you get a feel for it, there's a lot of advantages with digital tools. My favorite is MindNode. It's kind of the perfect balance between simplicity and beauty and functionality. It's really, really good and available on all Apple platforms. It's actually part of SetApp too. So he talks about preparing for your mind mapping session, filling out your mind map, and then you just keep going without a filter. I think that's grossly oversimplifying the process, but the goal is just to capture everything that comes to mind. So I definitely think that's the place to start.
Mm-hmm. So that's the M in the more method. The O is then outlined. So then we take that, and what I thought was crazy about when he starts talking about the O, and this is chapter 6. So this section is 5, 6, and 7. So chapters 5, 6, and 7. What I think is crazy is, did you hear how long the outline he made was? It was like 21 pages. I was like, man, that is a beefy outline, right? Like the example he gave was,
I could see it.
Yeah. So, but it's good because you're taking that mind map and you're adding more structure to it. You're finding themes. You're then organizing those themes. You're making a list for each section. And the goal is to get your chapters out of that, I would say. So you're trying to take that outline and you're trying to turn it from completely unstructured mind map into a structured or a more structured outline, which I think is a really good way. I can tell you, having written a dissertation, which is basically like a mini book, this is a very effective method because you start with all these ideas and then you've done your research around these things and you have all this stuff jumbled in your head, and you have to turn it into something that has structure. And annoyingly, you have to turn it into something that has like this one structure that everybody's looking for. Like, this is the structure of your dissertation. So, and this approach is really, really great. So that's outlining. Like, I don't need to spend any more time on it for me. I don't know if you have anything else to add with outlining.
Well, I would just say that I don't think outlining is a completely separate step. Like, one of the things I love about MindNode is it actually gives you the mind map and the outline together if you want it. So the objectives that he has with outlining, I think actually I would accomplish a lot of that inside of the mind map itself. But I think flipping back and forth between those modes helps you look at the information a little bit differently. So, and then the chapter 7, the R is the 30-day rough draft challenge. I think this is the thing that you and I are going to do at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe we make a public bookworm challenge out of it. I don't know, but I think it's interesting to see how he has actually created the 30-day rough draft as part of the process. It's not, if you really have things together, you can do this in 30 days. It's like, no, when you get to this part, you just crank it out in 30 days.
But he relies on the fact that you've done that 21-page outline that really, which this is where I said I've had experience with this and it really, really works. If that outline has detail and then you just add a little more detail and then you just add a little more detail, when you get to the rough draft phase, all you're doing is turning it into sentences, like sentences and paragraphs and then section headers and chapters. And it really makes the writing process flow. as opposed to what most people do. And I think he calls this out in the book somewhere, where most people do is they open up a blank page and they say, oh, okay, I'm going to start typing right now. And I have to get into the right format and all that stuff. And he's like, no, put all your ideas down, organize those ideas, or add more detail, add more detail, add more detail, start writing sentences, start writing paragraphs. And if you do that, I don't doubt for a second, the 30-day rough draft becomes much more tangible. Like it actually becomes much more doable, where some people would say like, okay, but if you don't do the two things before, the mind mapping and the outlining, I think that 30-day rough draft is a really, really hard goal to hit. I think it's, I wouldn't say like undoable, but you have to be super disciplined and a clear thinker in order to hit that 30-day rough draft.
So here's the thing I think we need to add to this if we do the 30-day challenge, which he did not address, is this 30-day rough draft challenge. You cannot use AI for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I feel like that really isn't addressed in the book. And I feel like that's the place where people are going to go when they get into this step of the process, and then the words aren't coming as quickly as they want, and they're going to start looking for an easy button. Don't do that. It's going to make your book just like all the other AI slop that's out there.
Yeah, and I would say that it's not in this book because AI wasn't even in the revised version. It was 2021.
Correct.
And OpenAI didn't really launch the thing we know of as right now until 2023, I think is when it came out. So that makes sense why it wasn't in here, but that's his next revision in my mind. As he thinks about revising this book, he's got to add a section about generative AI and writing, how it impacts your writing.
And that's not to say you can't use it in the process, but you don't use it for the writing of the rough draft.
Agreed. So folks, I mean, we're not able to cover all the stuff he gets, he talks about in here. So like he talks about the 4 P's of a best-selling book: person, pain, promise, price. Like there are so many nuggets is the best way I can describe it. Like there's so many nuggets that you're like, oh, I actually see how that makes sense. I really see how that makes sense, that it makes it hard for us to do it justice as we're talking about it. So hopefully we give you a good enough overview that if you're the kind of person who's like, yep, I want to think about writing a book, regardless of your way that you want to publish it, you'll go, oh, okay, I'll go check that book out and see if it adds value to me. And even if you only open up the section that you care about, give it a shot and see how much it adds value. All right. So he's going now. And Mike, I'm blanking on the E and more. I think it's edit, but I don't remember.
I don't know. That's probably where section 3 comes in.
Yeah,
because that's from rough draft to finished manuscript.
Okay, because I didn't want to move on to section 3 if there was an E within the other two, but I didn't think there was. So section 3 is from rough draft to manuscript. There's 2 chapters: crisis of meaning, which is basically, hey, let's talk about editors and how editors play in this process. So you're going from rough draft to something more. And then chapter 4 is how to hire and work with an editor to create a quality book. So
chapter 9, you mean?
Oh, sorry, chapter 9. Did I say 4? Forgive me. So chapter 9. So this crisis of meaning thing, he gets into this, which I've heard and we've talked about before, that like your imperfect rough draft is better than your unfinished rough draft, and that's a big hurdle. And you're trying to shoot for this perfection idea, but come on, like that's not where we're trying to go here. And then he dovetails that right into there are people out there and there are professionals. And I think, Mike, this is another area where I was like, oh, Mike's going to love this, where I think this is where he references Dan Sullivan and if there's somebody out there, that solved this problem for you, go figure out how they did it, or that solved the same problem, go figure out how they did it and find the who. And he would say that this is where the editor comes in. They are good at this. They are professionals at this. And then he gives you very tangible things around how much it should cost. And, you could pay this much money or you could pay this much money. And granted, we're in 2021 time frame, so who knows how prices have changed since then. But at the same time, I've not seen other people give ballpark numbers. Like you have to do like deep research on the internet and go into the forums. And here he at least gives you some ballpark numbers: $400 to $1,200 for a half decent editor. It depends on the length of your book. It depends on the style of your book. And I liked that information, even if it doesn't hold up long term. I like that he at least gives it to you and says, here's a ballpark number, and go out there and start talking to people.
Yep. Agreed. I think he makes a really compelling case for working with an editor, obviously. And there's the thing that really stood out to me, though, was chapter 8, The Crisis of Meaning. He gives a very underrated piece of advice here, I think, which is the best way to self-edit is to do a verbal read-through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I discovered this a couple months ago because I saw Sahil Bloom was doing this with his newsletter, where he would record a podcast version of it and then he would put it at the top of the post. So I've actually done that with my Practical PKM newsletter that goes out every Monday. I also publish it to my Ghost website, and I read through the article after it's finished and add the podcast to the top so you can play it inside of the page. It also has a URL. You can subscribe to it and listen to it that way. But I have found so many typos that I missed while reading it that I discovered when speaking it.
Yeah.
To the point now where when I am working on a video script for a YouTube video, I script the whole thing. So I'm writing it, and I'm actually reading it out loud as I'm writing it a lot of times. People probably think I'm crazy because I don't catch stuff when I'm writing it, but when I am saying the words that appear on the screen, I notice all the mistakes that I make. So this is really brilliant in my opinion.
Yeah, I think any kind of text that you're going to publish, it helps you to just say it out loud. The other one it helps me with is it really helps me with phrasing of things. Where I get into trouble is I speak a little more informally than I have to write a lot of times. So I'll want to say it in the informal way, and I'm like, no, Cory, you have to write that in the formal way. You have to think of the audience this is going to and how hard they're going to judge you when you say it like you talk to your friends and your family. So, all right, I'm ready to move to the next section. I've lost track of where we are. So 1, 2, 3, we're in section 4. Section 4 would be book production and then pre-launch prep. Now, Mike, this is where the book takes a turn for me. Okay. Book production, I'm in, right? Like I get this. The whole pre-launch prep thing was like somebody removed the wool from my eyes of like, hey, there's a whole nother side to this book thing that you haven't even thought about. There's this machine that's churning, and it's not just about writing the book. It's not just about producing the book. It's not just about figuring out how to deliver it to the people. There's this whole other machine, and he hits it here. He hits it in section 4, and then all of section 5 which is called How to Launch Your Book, is about this idea of launching and marketing and all of these things. And I still don't think I know how I feel about these sections of the book. We'll get there as we go, but I just wanted to give that disclaimer of like, and here's what I mean when I say I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of don't like it. I get it intellectually that like this is what needs to happen for a book to be successful. And I'm like, really? Like, and like he describes the person. He's like, can't I just write the book? Like, I just want to write the book. Can't I just write the book? And he's like, sure, you can. But if you want people to read the book, or if you want to make money off the book, or if you want to, and I'm like, oh, daggone it. Like, I'm actually gonna have to do this.
Dude, I am his exhibit A for that advice. You know, when not just with the book that I wrote, but I remember the first product that I released on my own. It was the faith-based productivity stuff. And I went into a hole and worked on it and spent months making it. And like, this is great. Released it to the world. The production quality was fantastic. The material I felt like was really, really good. And I sold 10 copies. Yep. Like nobody wanted it. That was crushing. And I made that mistake. And what I realize now, and I think maybe influences the way that I read this book, is that's not necessarily a bad thing to think about that stuff. And so I get it why most people don't want to think about this stuff. They want to just make their art, and they want the world to just throw money at them and say, oh, this is amazing. Thank you for mustering the courage to do this. That's not how it works.
It's not how it works at all. here,
And that's not a bad thing. This is not an evil side of the business. It's just something that you need to understand.
exactly. And he pitches it from the remember your why. So he ties back into that remember your why. You wanted to impact people's lives. Well, if they don't know about your book, then they can't, you can't impact their lives. If you haven't done the pre-work to actually get the word out there, it's not going to rank high enough, and Amazon's not going to put it in the list that it needs to be put in. They're not going to show it in front of people's faces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where, I mean, to say it's the meat of the book, I don't think is unrealistic, because it's 7 chapters. It's 7 chapters. So coming up with your best-selling book title, designing your best-selling book cover, how to format your book and get ready to publish. I think he should have separated these two. So here's my first real critique of the book. I think he should have separated this into actual book production, which was 10, 11, and 12. And then the next one should have been pre-launch prep, which would have been 13 through, which is the psychology of marketing, sharing your author journey, using a launch team to help sell more books and spread your message, and then building an audience, right? I think it would have just been cleaner in his style. I don't know why he smushed them together. Do you have a feel for that?
Well, I think I'm going to push back a little bit. I think that these actually should be together.
Okay.
Because I don't think you can go through the artistic production of the cover and the title and the packaging basically of the book and then be like, okay, so here's this thing, and now I'm going to figure out how to market it. You have to be thinking about the marketing when you are designing the cover, when you are picking the title. And there is no greater evidence of this to me than making so many YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Because they will tell you that 80% of the views that you're going to get are going to come from the packaging, the title, and the thumbnail. And it's absolutely correct. And then if you take it a step further, it's the hook. For a long time, I made really great videos with great information. And I found that you can't just take those videos and throw them up on YouTube, because there's so many other options people have. And I think that's where the fact that this is combined together and the information that he shares here, this is actually exponentially more important today than it was when he wrote it, because you have to fight through more noise than you ever have in order to stand out. And if you can't write a good title, if you can't create a good hook, if you can't create a cover image that is very easy to read and people grok it right away, you're not going to sell anything.
Yeah, I think this is where he would have helped me out, because you're right. I think you're right when you think about it from a timeline perspective. That first more phase, when you get through the editing and now you actually have the written copy that's fairly good, right? Like that it's ready to go into production. These next two things need to start at the same time. And that's the way he talks about it in the book is your pre-launch work and your production work need to kind of go hand in hand as you prepare for the launch. And this is where I think, so Chandler, if you're listening, right, or if you ever listen to this later on down the road, I think his mountain figure, he could do a combined figure where he shows that on the mountain. Like he's got the whole like phases or the milestones on there. And then when you go up the mountain to milestone six, and it's cover design and formatting, and there's those two milestones in there, he could start to talk about launch and pre-launch, and then when you actually get to launch, these other launch activities. I think it's a picky detail, but at the same time, that would help my visually oriented brain kind of wrap its head around this stuff more.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think the thing to keep in mind, I don't know where I got this number, but I thought I read somewhere that his goal is to help you get to the point where you sold 10,000 copies. Am I just making that up?
It's in the title of the book. So yes.
Okay, so mine just says proven path from blank page to published author on the cover that I have in my mind map file, but. Yeah, so that 10,000 number, that's the key. Like if you just want to have a book that you can point to on your bookshelf, and I wrote that, you can disregard everything but the first couple chapters in this section.
Yeah.
But if you're beginning with that as the endpoint, like that's where you're going to try to go. The sooner that you think about this marketing stuff, the better off you're going to be, because it needs to be in the bones of the book. It has to be in the DNA from the very beginning. It can't be tacked on at the end.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's run through a little bit more of these. We've got 7 chapters here. Yeah, I said the first ones were about really getting the book ready. So he hits formatting, he hits hitting cover design and hitting title. He gives like really good, he has these sections in there that he calls best-selling author tips. So he gives these little like very actionable things. And then like we said before, he has these guides or templates that he works you through from selfpublishing.com. I think for me, the psychology side and then the author journey and the launch team, those things were the more valuable parts of this section to me, because I hadn't really ever thought of those before. And they were changing what I'll call like my worldview around publishing. Whereas the other ones were much more like mechanical. They were do this, don't do this. This is a good title. This is a good book cover design. Here it is. And like, boom, like just kind of throwing it out there. But the psychology of marketing and the building a buzz and launch team and then building an audience through an email list. These are the things that you've probably thought about a little bit more than I have, because you are running a creator business. I'm not running a creator business. So I think about, oh, well, how do I build a launch team? Like I've seen people do this. I've signed up. I've been part of launch teams. I get why I did it from my side. And now he's like thinking about like why the value of the launch team is. And then what got me on this, Mike, is you kind of have to like poke them, and you're like, hey, we're getting close. Help me out. Like read this copy and give me a review. Like I really need those reviews on day one. And it's like, Mike, that hurts me. Like the idea of doing that. And I know they signed up. I know they want to help you. He talks about that like they're in, but like that, there's something in my gut that says, oh, I don't want to bother you. Like, I don't want to be annoying. I really would love if you would do a review, but like, I don't want to be annoying, kind of a thing.
Okay. So this to validate what he's saying here, you absolutely have to do this. And I had to do a different version of this when I launched Life HQ, when I launched the library. It doesn't have to be me sending a text message or me sending an email saying, please go do this. There are other ways that you can make this easier. Like I used Senja when I was doing Life HQ, and I think you actually recorded a video like right in the web interface, right?
And let's pause here. I had no issues doing that. It wasn't like, I didn't even think about it, Mike. Like it was like, oh no, like this is cool. Like Life HQ is awesome. And I want Mike to know that I think it's awesome. And I want other people to know that it's awesome. So there was no like hesitation in my brain about pulling my phone up, recording that quick video and shooting it off to you. But for me being on the other side of it, well, I just don't like it.
Yeah. I don't think there's probably some people who just don't care at all and can send those emails without any sort of hit to their conscience. But I think most normal people are going to feel a little bit bad making that ask. Yep. That's okay. You still got to do it. And really, if you do it in a nice way, you kind of just, if you can do it in a way where if you're able to do this, it would really help me out. But there's also like, you're a jerk if you don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line there, I think, in terms of the expectations. Like, you signed up for this, you need to leave me a review now.
Yeah.
That sort of tone can come across in the messaging if you're not careful, but I also think it's pretty easy to avoid.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So maybe I'm just a little too sensitive to it, and I need to get thicker skin when it comes to this. But folks, if you haven't been able to tell, I am not a marketer.
Well, you just gotta do it. I think it's not even so much, a marketing thing. I think there's different aspects of this where once you do it, it's not so bad. Like sales is another thing where I hear from people all the time. It's like, oh, I don't want to be salesy. I'm not a salesperson. I'm like, well, you're married, aren't you? So you've sold yourself at least once.
Yeah. And and most people have gotten a job. So you've sold yourself in the job interview, and there's a bunch of different ways that you've done that.
It's not what I meant. It's the same thing. It's just how you think about it.
It is. The last one I'll say, and this is one where I thought you would connect again with what he's saying, and I've heard a lot of this stuff through you, is this idea of the email list. That like right now, this idea of having an email list and being able to directly communicate with your current customers, those who are interested, those who might become your future customers or whatever that is. He doubles down on this, and I was like, oh, Mike's probably going to really resonate with this and also see the value in what he's saying here.
Yeah, you definitely want to build your own email list. There's so much that's happening in the social media landscape, but however many followers you have, however many subscribers you have really means nothing. It's all about the algorithm in terms of who actually sees your stuff. So I feel like the best way to use social media right now is sort of to test things, because you don't need to have a huge following. If you write something that's really good and helps a lot of people, then it's going to blow up. And on the other side of that, if you want to be able to reach everybody with a specific message, especially as it pertains to this thing is available, or I'd like you to take this action, the only way to do that is with an email list.
Got it. Okay, so ready to move to section 5?
Let's do it.
So section 5 is how to launch your book. It's got 4 chapters in it: the fundamentals of a bestseller, the MVP launch, the traditional launch, and then the road to your first or next 100 reviews. So the first chapter there is exactly what it sounds like. He's going to walk through these different fundamentals. A quick look at my notes says there were 6 of them, if I'm looking at this correctly. So, he's got quite a few different fundamentals. So something like, get more than 100 reviews.
I've got the 7 fundamentals of a bestseller. Is that what you're talking about?
So there's 7. Yeah, there's my 7th one. So publish in all formats, get 100 reviews or get more than 100 reviews. Your book description that converts people, or your book cover that converts people into actually buying. So that is the nature of that chapter. Again, it's very like actionable. This is what I've learned by helping, thousands of people publish a book and seeing what has worked and what hasn't. Then he goes into these 2 different ideas for your launch strategy. And one is the MVP launch and one is the traditional launch. So the MVP launch, it's most commonly used launch strategy. It's for first-time authors, an author without a following, to basically build a following, an author with aspirations beyond book sales, such as generating leads for your business, or whatever it is. And he describes this launch triangle. So the launch triangle has a launch team, it then has reviews, and then it has promotions. So he's going to say this MVP launch needs these 3 pieces: team, reviews, and promotions, and that's how you're going to kind of get this book out there and get it into the hands of people. I think that's an interesting thing. Like it makes sense to me, but what I love and the point I want to make in this is it's very easy to follow. Like if I want to do the MVP strategy, I know how to do it now. Like I write a checklist and I go, okay, Chandler said to do this. He said to do this. He said to do this. And I'm not saying like blindly don't think about it and just do whatever Chandler said, but it's like, it's so clear and easy to follow that like it makes it doable. It takes that like stress of, I don't know how to launch a book, to like, oh, just follow these steps and you're going to be, and he even says it a couple times in there. If you do these steps, you're going to be better than 99% of the people who author a book, who make it to the author phase of the book. So I really like that about his writing style and what he's produced here.
The one thing I want to call up from this comes from the last chapter 20, where getting your first 1-star review is a rite of passage. Because I've experienced this. It's those negative reviews that tend to stick with you, not all of the glowing reviews about how great the thing is. It's the one person who has an unfair criticism that you can't respond to, that you turn over and over and over again in your brain. Yep. So I like the way that he just kind of reframes that and is like, that's part of the process. And we actually celebrate the fact that you got your first 1-star review. It means that you made something that's worth criticizing for some of these trolls.
And you got enough reviews. Like that was the point that stood out to me, is like, you've got enough reviews that somebody reviewed negatively. Like that's a win. Like you go get them, and they have a party for them. So I love that.
Yeah. And I think it is possible, obviously, that you just wrote a really bad book. You do want to be careful if all you're getting is negative reviews. Maybe you missed something.
Yeah.
But most people are going to be kind. Most people will give you the benefit of the doubt. And no matter how much you pour into whatever you're making, there's always going to be somebody. Some of the YouTube videos that I've done, I do everything I can to be completely transparent. Like I'm not, trying to sell this thing. I've got this thing. Life HQ if you want this, but here's everything. I'm going to show you how to do it all yourself, right? And I'll spend so much time detailing every little part of the process so you don't have to buy anything, right? There's still going to be people who are going to dislike that video. Oh, this is just trying to sell me something. No.
Yeah, this is the for those folks who just, if you don't want to do the work, here it is. Like, I've already canned it for you, and there's your
exactly. Yeah. But some people, that's just who they are, and you got to accept that.
Yeah. All right, so then we get into the traditional launch, and I think it's interesting to talk about these two. You've got this MVP one where you've got these different things that you're doing on your own, and then the traditional one looks like for people who have published books. They've worked with a major publisher. They're public speakers. They're consultants. Essentially, it's for like people who aren't me, right? Like, that's what I read. And when I read this, is like, hey, if you're famous, you can do a traditional book launch. And this is what most people see. So what do? You go on TV, you go on podcasts, you go and you run your circles, right? And all I could think about in my head, right, is like, and this is what Ryan Holiday does. Right. Like, like he just, I'm going to put out a new book. Okay. Like, let's have him on the 19 different media outlet, things talking about his new book. But like, there's a reason why they can do this and the reason why it works, but it's also, there's a reason why, if that's your goal, I would say Chandler Bolt's saying that might not be the best goal for a new unpublished person or somebody without a huge following. You may want to take this other approach. And I think he steers you that way, not in an inappropriate way, in a realistic, come on, like, let's be real about this. Like, you're not getting on major television networks and these gigantic podcasts. You're probably going to have to do some of this, MVP or guerrilla style marketing. MVP, by the way, is minimum viable product marketing. So,
yeah, I like the fact that he called out the 4 main bestsellers lists, the New York Times being editorial, and basically you have no control over that one. And then Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and Amazon all being merit-based. And even those, some of those are more feasible than others. And so it's interesting the way that he frames it, because I guess the belief I had going into reading this book was you really need to work with a traditional publisher if you want to show up on any of the lists. And I was familiar with New York Times and Wall Street Journal, basically. And Amazon, I guess I kind of knew existed, but never really made the connection that was actually a list that you could target with your book launch for some reason. So this is kind of interesting. It's like, these are the lists, and there's going to be different ones that are going to be appropriate for different people in terms of their launch goals, and pick the one that you can hit, basically.
Well, the thing I loved, and the reason why I chuckled when you said about it is, I had a bad taste in my mouth. So when he started talking about this, I really appreciated his perspective on it, because he does call out the people who are like, oh yeah. And then there are those people who like put their book in underwater basket weaving, which is basically like anybody, like you put it in the most obscure category that you can ever find in the world. So you're then a bestseller on Amazon. And it's like, everybody knows you're not a bestseller, right? Like, really, everybody knows it. It's just, you found the category that nobody else, could wrote a book in this year. So I thought that was great. But then I like his strategy. Like, he gives you like a really good strategy. He's like, find one that you can hit and that you have like a chance of rising up in, and then find one that's more of a stretch. And your goal is to try to do 2 of those. And then he tells you that you can actually add a bunch more in Amazon, which most people don't know. So this ties directly to his reviews. And he talks about reviews a lot in the rest of the book, that these reviews are essential and they're critical and they help you kind of like stay up on top of the scales. I think this is, I know reviews exist everywhere, but I think this is really driven by Amazon, and it's really driven by online and digital copies of it. I don't think this applies as much for like the paper copy of the book, but I think it's very, very valuable and it's very valid. And it's more a matter of how do you get the boost that you need when you're publishing or when it's kind of showed to people, and reviews are essential. So that's kind of how he ends this section.
Yeah, I don't know that I really want to play the reviews game. I get why it's important if this is going to be the tentpole of your business, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
The email list is.
Yeah. At this time, I feel it's completely appropriate to do a complete side note that says, if you like the Bookworm podcast, go like every. We don't ever, Mike, do you realize we don't ever ask people to go review the podcast? Like, we don't know. So
yeah, that's because I never read those reviews.
Yeah.
I did at the beginning when I started doing Bookworm and I started doing Focused. I was watching the reviews and there were some really nasty ones. Yeah. And I was like, I can't. This is going to be bad for my mental health if I just keep reading these.
Yeah, I would much rather you go tell somebody about this really cool podcast that you listen to and like see if you can get like word of mouth. Like I would rather you do that, but hey, you do you. You can do whatever.
Yeah.
You can.
So here's the thing though. It's not just, it's not just me. It's not just Bookworm. It's not just Focus. Like every podcast has those reviews and it's just not worth going and looking at them because somebody's having a bad day and they decide to take it out on you in the last episode that you recorded. And that stuff can stick with you for a long time. So I just stopped looking.
Got it. All right. So let's get to the last section, selling books after launch. And in this one, there are 5 chapters. Sorry, this isn't the last one. This is the next to last one. So selling your book after launch, there's 5 chapters in this one. Mike, I'm going to be very, very honest with you. We're 160 something pages into the book at this point, and I am starting to go, I am nowhere near selling a book. Like Chandler, I appreciate this, but you've been hitting me with like really good stuff for the last 150, 160 pages. I'm not ready to think about what I do after I launch the book because, and this is where maybe his picture of the mountain, right, like kind of does him a disservice. Is I'm thinking like I got a lot of mountain to climb. Like I got a whole lot of mountain.
No, to climb. So don't even worry about this section, basically. Yeah. But I think this is important. Once you have your book, you want to get to the point where you have 10,000 people who have read it. That is a bit of a stretch for just about anybody, and so you do have to put in the work in order for that to happen. Now, at CEX, I saw Jay Klaus and Justin Moore recording this podcast across the lobby. But there's a very good episode of the Creator Science podcast where Jay and Justin, who are friends, are talking about Justin's book. Because Justin published Sponsor Magnet, which actually we should both read and apply for Bookworm, probably selling sponsorships and ads and things. But basically, Justin self-published through Tilt, I think. And I actually have 3 copies of his book because I bought one before it came out. And then I was somewhere and I got a free copy because it was part of a conference I attended or something. And then at Craft and Commerce, he brought a bunch of books and put them on the chairs before one of the sessions. So everybody who was there, got one. And I don't think that was guerrilla, by the way. I think they had an agreement there. But on that episode, he talks to Jay about all of the things that he is doing in order to sell more copies of his book. And he talked about how he is even doing like custom versions of the book for events that have like 2,000 attendees. They're going to have a separate version of the book that's tailored to that organization and to that event, and everybody who signs up for it gets a copy, stuff like that, which I think is interesting if you're not doing the traditionally published route. And that's where I see a lot of the advice that he's sharing in this section. It's that sort of stuff. That being said, I'm not sure that the things that he listed here are the right things for right now. I think these are great. I think the advice that he shares here is really good. And you should kind of understand where he's coming from when he's giving you this advice, but then you should be thinking about, how do I apply this in my industry right now? Because it might be a little bit different. There's good advice here about, getting speaking appearances and things like that. But really the question you should always be asking is, how do I get this book into more people's hands?
All right, so hitting these 5 chapters. I've launched now the 1-year launch, 4 more ways to sell books after your launch, book booking author appearances to sell more books and grow your business, and then growing your business using a book bonus. What the last thing I want to call out here, again, there are good tactics in all of this. If you're at that stage, this is where I realized, like, yes, this is a reference book for me. Like, this is 100% a reference book for me. I need to, like, not pay as much attention to this because I'm going to overload my brain, but know that it's here and come back to it. The chapter 25, his bonus chapter, is basically like, this is what I'm doing, right? Like that's this is what I'm doing. I wrote a book. I'm using this book to grow my selfpublishing.com business. And this is what I'm doing.
Yep.
And he doesn't, like, I don't think he shies away from it, but it's like, hey, this is exactly what I'm doing. And here you go. Like, here are the details. We get into now the very last section.
One more thing before we get there. Chapter 25, where he talks about treat it like a hobby and it will pay like a hobby. So you do have to come back to this at some point. You do have to tackle the hard things here. But then also, I'm kind of curious, because that chapter is specifically growing your business using a book. I think maybe you can cannibalize your business with a book also. Okay. I haven't spoken to him directly about this, but I feel like I've heard Tiago Forte talk about different places, how he's happy with the success of the Building a Second Brain book. But I know that he mentioned that it has cannibalized sales of the cohort as well. So one of the things that he calls out in this chapter, which I think is important to think about, is sort of the value ladder. You know, teach me how to do it, show me how to do it for me. I think you have to consider how the book fits in with all of the other business assets that you have in order for it to really do what you want it to do. You can't just view it as a thing in isolation.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I hadn't thought about it, and I didn't know that about Tiago and how it's impacted his career. All right, we hit the last section. So section 7. Now what? How to implement. So make him proud, and then your implementation plan. These were strange to me. This was very different, I thought, than the rest of the book. The Make Him Proud is very much a personal story that Chandler gives, and it's a dramatic personal story about being on a cruise ship with an individual, and that individual ends up dying, and then basically Chandler's like, okay, like, I've got a mission now, right? And that mission is to, help share knowledge and kind of honor this individual. So that's why it's titled Make Him Proud. I understand what he's doing. Like, I understand the nature of the context. It didn't really resonate that much with me. It felt a little bit kind of out in left field. And then 27, which is your implementation plan. This is the only part of the book. This is the only time I felt like he might have pushed a little too hard, because essentially your implementation plan is, hey, come to selfpublishing.com and, like, be part of the team, right? Like, come on. Like, it's time. Come to selfpublishing.com, which I get. He's doing his thing, right? He has told you he's an authorpreneur. He has told you that he has written a book to grow his business. Here it is, right? Like, come on, like, come join the team. And that's the only time in the entire book I've kind of gone like, all right, that was a pretty hard sell. Like, that was a pretty big push.
Yeah, agreed. I don't really fault him for that, to be honest, but I agree with everything that you said here. The story is very tragic and emotional, but it's also something that is a little bit hard to relate to. Yeah. Haven't been on a whole lot of cruises.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
You can hear us. Like, I didn't relate to it that much. Like, I get where we're at, but I felt like it was something he needed to put on paper, and here it is. Yeah. Like, boom, like there you go. Maybe as like trying to motivate. I don't know if it landed that well with me.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. So that wraps it up. Do you have anything about the bonus material or anything like that? I didn't have anything on that.
Nope.
Okay. So now we move into action items. And Mike, I'm struggling with action items on this. I really think that the action item I have for this would be to talk to you and figure out, which we kind of did a little bit, but like to talk to you in more detail and say like, hey, Mike, are we serious about this thing? like he talks about it at one point in the book about like having an accountability buddy, right? And he actually uses that phrase, which I've never heard anybody else use the phrase accountability buddy before, which is somebody else that you're in the author journey with that you can come alongside and do this with. And I thought like, okay, like Mike, are we going to be like accountability buddies and are we going to do this thing like in whatever we're going to do? So I actually think my action item, the only one I have is to, at some point, I'm not even going to say it's before our next recording, at some point you and I need to revisit what are we going to do? Are we going to do anything? And does it make sense for us to actually take on the 30-day challenge? I think like a quick action item that would follow that, depending on our conversation, would be plan the 30-day challenge. Like, when are we doing it? What are the 30 days? And let's plan the 30-day challenge. So those are really the only things I'm getting out of this book from what I'm committing to right now. How about you?
Agreed. I mean, the action item is either you write a book or you decide it's not the right time.
Yeah.
I am 100% committed to writing this book. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I want to do it before the end of the year. Little bit hesitant to commit to that before the next recording, but I think we can for sure figure out the time frame.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the same thing for me. We need to figure out when we're going to write it.
Okay. All right. So there you go. You heard it. You heard it from us. Let's go to style and rating. My book. So I'll start. From a style standpoint, I thought I thought the way he wrote was very relatable. I thought he didn't fluff anything up unnecessarily. I thought he communicated well. The outlines of the different ideas that he was throwing out there were well done. I think the visuals made sense the way he added them. Some of them hit better for me than others. Like some of them I was just like, okay, you probably didn't need to do a visual there. Other ones I was like, oh yeah, that actually added a ton of value. I'd already talked to you about in the fourth section of the book. I think we could have split that up and I think it would have been a cleaner thing. Even though I get your point. Like I understand what your point was, Mike. I still think it probably would have resonated a little bit cleaner with me having split that up and not having it be seven chapters in that section. The stuff at the end, I won't belittle it again. You probably just could have gotten rid of chapter 26 and 27, and it could have just turned into the thank you for reading my book, and oh, by the way, come to selfpublishing.com if you want more help. And that would have been better for me if he'd have done that. That being said, I don't think any of those things detract from the immense value that this book is. That said, I must caveat it with, if you don't care about publishing a book, this is a terrible book for you to read. Like, if you don't want to learn about publishing, if you don't care about writing a book, if you don't care about any of this stuff, just be like, okay, good. I don't ever have to read that book and it's gone and I'm never going to think about it again, and be okay with that. Be happy, because if this book is written for people who are interested in thinking about publishing a book, and in particular, interested in self-publishing a book. We happen to be in that space, you and I. So for me, I'm going to rank this a 5-star book. I think this is an incredible book. I think it's fantastic. I would read it again. I want to keep it as a reference for when I start to thinking about reading it again. I don't think I'll read it from start to finish again. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think I have to do that. But if you don't care, and like you don't want to self-publish a book, this is probably a 0-star book for you. So understand that. Like, I'm ranking it a 5-star, but you could easily look at it, read the first, or just read the titles of the chapters and be like, nope, I'm out. And the answer is yes, you are absolutely correct. So 5-star book for me, Mike.
Yeah, this was one that when you picked it, I was like, this is either going to be exactly what people need, or they're not going to be interested in it at all. Yeah. And I think that is true, which I think for the type of book that he's trying to teach you how to write, that's sort of the feeling you want to give people, is either, oh, this is exactly what I need, or this isn't really for me. And I'm kind of curious how many people in the bookworm audience are interested in this, because my gut says that there are more people who believe that they have a book in them and they want to write it than they than actually like share that desire. So
can I redeem something? Can I redeem something for us?
Sure.
Even if you are the person who's like, I don't ever care, I don't want to write a book, but you read a lot of books, I do think this book helped me understand publishing better. So like there, I'll redeem it a slight. So maybe you go from a 0 to a 1. Okay, cool. I'm done. You're back.
No, it's not a 1-star book. That's not what I was saying. But I think that means it's not a 5-star book for me, because I don't think it's as broadly applicable. And I don't know that there's anything in here for me personally. Now, I have been all in with the independent creator stuff for the last couple of years. And even before that, I was doing stuff on the side. So I have probably way more research and experience into this area than the average person. So I think putting myself in someone like you, their shoes, where you want to write a book and you weren't at the Content Entrepreneur Expo and you didn't talk to all of the people that I talked to. Something like this is the thing that's like, oh, this shows you the path forward. Having been to CEX and talked to these people, this is, one option out of many.
Yeah.
And there are probably other versions of this exact book from many of the people that I met there.
Okay.
I think it's really well done. I think it points you in the right direction. I think the information that he shares is great. Definitely gave me some more details that I didn't have previously, and helped me piece together the puzzle a little bit more fully, I think. But I don't think I can rate this 5 stars. I will rate it 4 stars. Okay. I do think it's really good. There's not much fluff in here. And if you're looking for something that's going to help you overcome that friction where I want to write something, but I really don't even know where to start, now this is a great option. And I wish that I had read this prior to self-publishing my first book. I wish this had existed at that point. It would have helped me out a ton. But I just, it's a very specific niche, that is either for you or not for you. And even with that, I think it's either for you at this stage of your life or it's not. I think there are people who maybe want to write a book, and it's very possible that, this just isn't the right time. Don't bother with this one then. Yeah. You just save it. Like you mentioned, come back to it when you're ready. But for the person who is ready, there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah, good. All right, Mike, let's put published on the shelf. What's next for us?
Next is a book called Time Anxiety by Chris Guillebeau. Chris Guillebeau is the person behind the World Domination Summit, I believe, which now is no longer a thing in Portland, Oregon. It was this cool conference that people used to go to. I never got to go, sadly. But he also has written a lot of other books, including the $100 Startup, I think is the one maybe he's most known for. Okay. But I think this is an interesting idea coming off of the heels of Eat That Frog, which is basically just be more productive and get your work done.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is going to be, I haven't started it yet, but I'm hoping this is going to be a little bit of a anti-time management book from somebody who still is, I would say, pretty prolific in terms of their productivity, but maybe will give us some different ways to think about how we manage our time and tasks.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this one. After that, I'm going to have a side kind of conversation with Mike right now. So Mike, get ready for it. Mike, you mentioned Sponsor Magnet. Should we bump Sponsor? Should we bump Sponsor Magnet up in replace of the other one we were talking about? I'm for it. I read the description of Sponsor Magnet and I like it. I'm in.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Justin is a really cool guy. So story about Justin Moore. I met him at Craft and Commerce a couple of years ago. It seems to be where I meet most of the creators that I meet. But he has this brand Creator Wizard. Okay. And he has these cohorts where he teaches people, and now even a conference where he helps you land these sponsorship deals. And I met him for the first time at Crafts and Commerce right after I had gone independent. I knew who he was, and I had interacted with him a couple times online. Met him at like the opening party and was just a super, super nice guy. And then he actually speaks at Craft and Commerce, and he shares from the main stage this very emotional story about how he was in this agency and it wasn't going well, and they were in all sorts of debt, and it was a really tough time, and how he worked through it basically. And so I got to talk to him after the talk, and I was like, dude, that was exactly what I needed to hear. Like, that's exactly what I'm going through. And he's one of those people where he, in like the 5-10 minutes after that talk, we're in the main hall still. There's a bunch of people milling around, but he and I have this really deep conversation where it feels like we are the only two people in the room, and all the other 400 people that are there are like watching us. Yeah. That's just the kind of person that he is. He's a really, really nice guy. So I have no problem shining a spotlight on his book.
Well, and it came out in January, so it's new. It's still fairly new. And it just seems really interesting from, what we talk about in terms of business practices and self-help. So it's Sponsor Magnet, how to attract, price, and execute your dream brand partnerships. And I think thinking about partnerships in general is a fun topic to talk about. So let's go ahead and make a little bit of a switch, and let's go to Justin Moore's Sponsor Magnet.
Alrighty.
Do you have any gap books between now and our next recording?
That is a great question. Not off the top of my head. I still need to finish How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. It is confirmed. We will be talking to Donald J. Robertson on Focused at some point. So I need to have some context for when that conversation happens.
Yeah, it's great. I do not have any. I'm not going to take on any. I am doing like a little mini course throughout the week. So any kind of my gap books right now are going to be associated with that course, but I do like a lot of gap reading. It's just, they're not books. So don't expect any gap books from me for 9 months. I don't know how long it's going to be unless I have to read it for that little mini course that I'm doing. So no, I do not have any gap books. For those of you who are Pro Show members, thank you so much for helping us, for keeping the lights on, for sponsoring or helping to put the show together. For those of you who are interested in the Pro Show, today we actually talked about writing. We talked about books we've written, our process through that, what we want to do. We tried to make it relevant to the book that we read for this week. If you're interested in becoming a Pro Show member, it's $7 a month. You would go to patreon.com/bookwormfm. You get some other perks associated with that. You get a longer ad-free Pro Show. You get the Pro Show included into that. It's released as quickly as we can after recording the show, so you get a bootleg version of it released really quickly. There's the live stream was part of it, but now we're gonna pull that out and we're gonna make it part of just kind of the normal show operations. But then we're gonna do a wallpaper, or you get access to the wallpaper as well. So if you're interested in helping sponsor the show, if you're interested in helping support the show, we'd love to do that. Patreon.com/bookwormfm.
And I would be interested in hearing what other ideas people would have for things that they would like to see included in the membership. We've kicked around the idea of doing bonus episodes and things like that. So reach out on the socials and let me know.
I think the easiest way to do that, the easiest way to reach out to us would be on Instagram. Just send us a message on Instagram. The other place, I'm trying to remember, Mike, if we have what we have on the website for reaching out to us.
There might be an email there, but yeah, just get a hold of me, or like you said, the Instagram feed I think is probably the best way to point people there. But yeah, we're going to be rethinking some of the stuff that's in there. So now would be a good time if you've got some things that you'd like to see. We'd love to hear your suggestions. We'd also love to hear your suggestions for books that you would want us to cover. Corey had a listener suggestion all ready to go till I changed his mind with Sponsor Magnet.
Don't worry, listener who doesn't know that we were going to pick their book. It's coming. It's coming later down the road.
Yep. But there will be a link in the show notes if you want to recommend a book. Please just take a moment to to add the book and the author there, and we will consider it for a future show. And if you're reading along with us, pick up Time Anxiety by Chris Guillebeau, and we will talk to you in a couple of weeks.